Manhattan Neighborhood Network, in partnership with the New York Amsterdam News and the League of Women Voters of New York State, presents Race to Represent, a Manhattan Neighborhood Network election initiative. Hello, I'm Eleanor Tatum. New Yorkers will be voting in the general election on Tuesday, November 6th. They will cast their ballots for offices including governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, controller, state senate, and state assembly. Today, we bring you a debate with the candidates running for state assembly in District 74. The winner will take office in January 2019. The New York State Assembly works alongside the state senate and the governor to create laws and establish a state budget. The 74th District covers the east side of Manhattan, including the Lower East Side, East Village, Alphabet City, Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper Village, Murray Hill, Tudor City, and the United Nations. Joining us today is Democratic nominee Harvey Epstein and his Republican challenger Bryan Cooper. A third candidate, Juan Pagan, was not able to join us today. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Our first question is going to go to Assemblyman Harvey Epstein. What three words would you use to describe yourself that identify you as the better candidate?
Thank you for the question. Three words I think identify myself. One is I'm collaborative, I'm diligent, and I'm engaged in process. Engaged.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
Patience, because you got to have a lot of patience. Empathy, because you have to have the ability to listen and to understand. And ethic, like work ethic. You got to have a strong work ethic.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein, you were elected in April, and so this is your first term. It was a special election. What legislative accomplishments are you most proud of, and have you had any disappointments?
Since I was elected on April 24th, I've been able to introduce over a dozen pieces of legislation, co-sponsored 200 others. Two of those pieces of legislation I introduced were passed in the Assembly and also passed in the Senate. One was already signed by the governor, which is expanding an affordable housing program. The second one allowing nurses who want to take a leave to work on Ebola issues to get a leave from their place of employment and have a right to return. So I'm really proud of all those achievements in just a short time. Things that disappointing were really not getting the 10 packages of housing bills that we passed in the Assembly moving forward, and getting the Reproductive Health Act passed in the Senate.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, what professional accomplishments best demonstrate your ability to hold this office?
I'm in the hospitality industry, and so as an independent contractor, as an event coordinator and event planner, I've managed like over a dozen parties and bar mitzvahs and birthday organizations for corporations and for private people. So I am around people all the time, and it is very hard work and it's very detail oriented. You have to be detail oriented to satisfy your clients and satisfy everybody. So being an assemblyman, you have to be detail oriented and have the ability to listen to people's problems and have the ability to solve them as best as you possibly can, because you cannot go to anyone and say, I promise to do this. No, you say, let me see what I can do. I'll do the best I can to help you. People will respond to that more than anything else.
Thank you. New York State has a $168 billion budget. What issues in the district would you like to see get more funding? Mr. Epstein?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we have a huge budget in New York State, the third largest in the country, and so it's a really important job to ensure that we have adequate funding. First is funding the MTA. We really need to deal with the $30 million capital problems that the MTA has and make sure we fix the signals, fix the subways. Second is public housing. Billions of dollars of public housing needs. We have over 20,000 public housing units in our district, and we need to adequately fund public housing to improve the lives of 450,000 New Yorkers.
Do you have any opinion on what needs more funding in your district?
Well, the number one thing that's concerned me is the employment, because right now, Henry Street Settlement, the Job Plus program, Workforce One, they are doing a marvelous job on training construction workers and getting them licensed. And the youth unemployment is now, I'm happy to say, is at the low, because we have businesses right now opening right now, and they are hiring people in the district. And I would like to have more funding for these organizations to continue, the marvelous work that they're doing. And then the nitrous situation with the lead paint, and the ceilings, and it was just getting old. We need more money to have infrastructure and to maintain, just to rebuild and redesign and reconstruct the infrastructure of all of these buildings, because they're dilapidating right now, and the paint is peeling off right now on some of these apartments. We have piping situation right now with the rust, which is bad for like environmental with the water, because you can't hardly drink the water, unfortunately, unless you boil it, and you have to keep it running. So it's, that's a big priority right now.
All right, so what positions have you held, Mr. Cooper, that give you the experience to deal with a budget of this size?
Well, like I said, I'm an independent contractor, and I deal with large budgets. But as far as politically, I am a district leader, and my budget is pretty small. But I had to learn how to allocate resources and to fund what needs to be funded. Unfortunately, things can't be funded all the time, but you have to learn how to stretch your budget a little bit.
Have you held a public office before, except? All right. And if you were elected, what committees would you like to sit on?
Well, I'm a law enforcement type of guy, so I would like to sit in the Homeland Security situation, and I would like to do the public housing, and I would like to, boy, that's a tough one, but law enforcement and housing would be the #1 priority.
Mm-hmm. And would you caucus with the Democrats?
Sure. I mean, I have no problem with that. I have definitely no problem. I mean, if they have legislation that I agree with, I have no problem doing that at all.
Mr. Epstein, what kind of campaigning have you done around the district?
So I've been campaigning since I won in April, going to meetings at tenant associations, meetings with community groups, on the street, door knocking, subway stops, schools, really understanding the concerns that people have in the district, so I have a better sense of what my obligations are when I go to Albany.
And what are the primary concerns of the constituents?
I think there's 5 primary concerns. One is lack of affordable housing. We've seen the neighborhood gentrify, and so the need for affordable housing is critical. The MTA, making sure that we have strong public transportation. We have issues both on the F train, the L train, the 6th line, where we have overcrowding, we have stops. We need to improve a public transportation system. Public education, I'm a strong proponent of public schools and public education, and there needs to be more funding there. We have a lot of concerns around criminal justice system and criminal justice reforms, whether it's reforming the bail system, legalization of marijuana, and we're out of ways where we see Black and Latino children and young people arrested at higher levels than we need to be. And finally, it's around voting and voting systems, or early voting. We need to ensure same-day voter registration and a campaign finance system that allows everyone to run for office.
Mr. Cooper, what kind of campaigning have you done in the area?
Well, I've been doing a lot of street campaigning in the street, talking to people in NYCHA housing, and I'm part of the tenant association, so I've been listening to the concerns with seniors right now. Their #1 concern right now is school choice, because parents want public schools. They're not very comfortable, so they want to have the ability to go to charter schools, homeschooling, and things like that. So they don't feel comfortable about the public school system as a whole.
The district is mainly in District 1, correct?
Well, District 2, really. District 2, District 6.
So District 1 and, District 1 and District 2, and in District 1 we have school choice. That means you can go to any public school throughout the district. So there's school choice, which is something that's been a strong push for parents since 1992 when we got that district of choice. Half the district is above 14th Street in District 2, and there are strong public schools both below 14th Street and above 14th in both districts, which parents are really excited to send their children to. I think the question really is, how do we ensure that our schools are diverse and respect the culture and the community that we have?
See, that's the thing, though. There are certain people that unfortunately that don't have that choice. It's like, they don't have the proper information on how to, get their kids into charter schools. And
we're talking about New York City public schools as well.
Right.
And there are good New York City public schools as well.
Well, not exactly. I mean, it's like I said, the parents should have the choice because some of them don't want to go to public school. They don't want their child to go to. They want to the private schools and charter schools. They want choice. They don't want hey, you go to public school or else. They don't want that. They want the best education for their child. That's what they want.
So if I can just say one other thing, though. But parent activists have been able to respond to that. We've created a parent center through parent activism in our community that allows parents to get information about choices that they have available. So that's what. We've had the Excelsior program and the GO program, which are programs that have been supported. So even if the parents do want to send their children to private schools, the GO program and Excelsior programs are services available for our families in our community that are now available so parents can make those choices on their own through parent activism and parent engagement.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing though, information. Parents don't have they don't even know where to go to get that information.
In District 1, there's a family welcome center, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a family center that we started 3 years ago that now been in PS15, is now moving to PS20, that now engages parents all across the district. Now, not everyone has access to it, but we also understand language and cultural sensitivity.
Well,
so we have language access programs available to people who speak multiple languages.
But now, since the age of technology, they want to have this online because unfortunately not everybody can go to a welcome center.
Right. Well, I believe also that information is online as well. But let's move on to another question. Let's go on to sanctuary cities. What legislation could you pass to ensure that New York State stays a sanctuary city? Mr. Epstein.
So I think New York should be a sanctuary state. I know New York City's moved forward saying it's a sanctuary city to protect people who are undocumented. One legislation I'm moving forward around is around the separation of families. It's called the SCAR Act that I introduced this summer when we learned that the Trump administration was pulling children away from their parents at the border. My legislation says that New York needs to hold families to have information available and hold our nonprofit foster care agencies accountable for what's happening in our city to ensure families are protected, and that we shouldn't be using our police powers to support ICE raids in our court system. I'm on a piece of legislation that says we should remove ICE agents from our court system because let's say I'm a survivor of domestic violence and I want to go report something to court. If I'm undocumented and I go to court, in theory the ICE agents can come and arrest me and deport me. It doesn't allow our court system to become a safe place. So the court system is a critical place to be at the forefront to protect people, and right now it's now not. So I think we need to move forward on that legislation that Assemblywoman Solange has introduced.
This is about homeland security, okay? New York State should not be a sanctuary city under no circumstances. Why? Because we have people that pretend to be immigrants. Unfortunately, they're like ISIS sympathizers or Al Qaeda, sympathizers posing, as illegal immigrants. Okay. Now you're talking about Trump. Okay. I agree what the president is doing. Why? Because we have to vet. Vetting is the #1 thing because if we don't vet these people, we don't know who they are. And that's it. I mean, that's plain and simple. So we can talk about sanctuary cities and ICE agents. They're doing their job, okay?
So
they're doing their job to protect the homeland and to protect the city and the citizens of the state.
Mr. Epstein?
Yeah, I think we just have fundamental disagreements here that I actually don't think what ICE is doing is protecting our city and it's protecting our state. It's terrorizing people who are in our country, people who are here who are undocumented with maybe documented children or people who are trying to get documentation, and what they're doing is creating fear. It's separating families. It's making children have scars for the rest of their lives. It is creating PTSD for children. It is creating so much hardship. What we could do is we wanted to really have a solid, thoughtful immigration policy. We talk about comprehensive immigration reform and talk about the 11 million people who are in our country who've come here and the children have come here and passed the DREAM Act and do things that protect people. Renewing DACA. There are so many fundamental things that we could do to protect people who live here. We're actually doing the opposite.
There is a move towards the legalization of marijuana that would put New York among the growing numbers of states to legalize the drug, including California, Colorado, and Washington. What is your position on the legalization of marijuana and its impact on the judicial system?
Well, being a former marijuana smoker, okay, I have to say that it's the gateway drug to other things. And to legalize that, I think it's wrong because what you're doing is you're giving people permission, to use drugs. I mean, we had drug enforcement laws since forever. And so now all of a sudden now you want to legalize marijuana? I mean, for what purpose? For what? Why?
So you said it's a gateway drug to other things, and as a former smoker, it led to you using other drugs?
No. I mean, I stopped. I stopped that a long time ago. So that was like when I was a teenager.
But you said it's a gateway drug to using other things.
Right, because I know people that unfortunately, okay, You know, they started with marijuana and then it moved on to something else. I mean, unfortunately, you know, it happened that way, but, you know.
So you're opposed to the legalization?
I oppose the legalization because, okay, what about the kids? Okay, now you're going to give kids permission to buy marijuana on the street or somewhere else? I mean, really?
So I'm in favor of legalization of marijuana, and for multiple reasons. Why? First of all, I have personal experience with families who have been substance abusers. Family members who've gone to prison, have committed suicide. It is not something I take lightly because I've seen the scourge of drug epidemic in our country. I was a foster care worker and I understand the problems. But what we're seeing is a criminal justice system that incarcerates Black and Latino kids at much higher rates because of the use of marijuana. And it's basically said to white people, it's legal for white people to smoke marijuana, we will not arrest you, but for Black and Latino kids, they will go to jail. That's a criminal justice problem. The second point is, I fundamentally disagree that it's a gateway drug. I think there are serious medical benefits for the use of marijuana. I think it is, like smoking is legalized but regulated. Alcohol is legal but regulated. Marijuana can be legal and regulated and actually can bring money into our economy because it's being used anyway. It'll allow people to create business opportunities because we're pro-business, and it creates opportunities in communities that have been traditionally excluded from a labor market.
But do you realize that it's still a federal law against the use of marijuana? Do you realize that?
Of course there's a federal law. That doesn't mean we can't change the state law and then move toward changing the federal law, but we can do what we can. We are running for a state office. The question is, what power do we have within our jurisdiction protecting people who live here?
Are you for or against the closing of Rikers Island and moving the inmate population to the borough-based facilities? And is 10 years too long? Let's start with you, Mr. Cooper.
Okay. Rikers Island should not be closed. It should stay where it is. And for many reasons, okay, because the criminal population, okay, it's a separation because we have violent criminals and we have nonviolent criminals, okay. It's been going on forever since Rikers Island has been open. If we start transferring, like the situation in the Bronx with the Horizon, the juveniles, there was a fight broken out and the correction officers got hurt, that was in the neighborhood, okay. What about the consensus about the neighborhood as a whole? I don't want a juvenile facility in my neighborhood. No, I believe it's dangerous. I mean, why do you want to put criminals in the neighborhoods that can endanger the welfare of people? No, Rikers Island should stay where it is, and that's it. I mean, that's just the bottom line, because even though that you want to close Rikers Island, where are you going to put these criminals?
All right, Mr. Epstein.
So thank you for the question. I do believe in closing Rikers Island. I think we need to do it. I've been to Rikers many times, both in my capacity as in the Assembly, as a friend visiting people who are on Rikers, and in my work capacity as a caseworker and social worker. There are so many problems with Rikers Island. One, it's inaccessible for families. So if people want to go visit their family members, it is really hard to get there. Two, it is not a good facility. It is not structurally sound, and there are long-term implications. And three, it is not a facility that we need much space for. Especially we make criminal justice reforms like I propose, legalization of marijuana, will reduce the overall population. We can actually have borough-based facilities that are more accessible, more approachable, especially since Rikers is a short-term place. We don't want people to stay there. If they're going to go to trial, if they get convicted, they will go up to an upstate facility. Short-term stays, exactly what a borough-based facility should be for.
All you have to do is allocate funds to rebuild and reconstruct Rikers Island. That's all. I mean, you talk about dilapidated and infrastructure. I mean, we have a $168 billion budget. Why don't we put some of that money into rebuilding and reconstruct Rikers Island? It's simple. That's all.
Have you ever been to Rikers Island?
Yeah, visiting friends, and I never been incarcerated in Rikers Island, but I know people that have gone to Rikers Island and stayed there.
And what is your position on bail reform, Mr. Cooper?
Bail reform?
Yeah.
I have to agree with Assemblyman Epstein that we should have criminal justice reform, because unfortunately there have been arrests that have been unjustified, and there have been unfortunately young people of color that for some reason they get high bail. For what? I mean, depending on the charge. Okay, so Yeah, I mean, if you committed like a minor offense, okay, and if you haven't done anything wrong and you got a model citizen, clean, I mean, you should be releasing your own reconnaissance or maybe a little bail. So I do believe in bail reform because there are certain crimes, that should not even be having any bail for.
Mr. Epstein.
Thank you. So I believe in elimination of cash bail. If someone needs to be held because they think they're a threat to society, we should hold them. We shouldn't just hold people because they can't afford to get released. I know someone who spent 6 months in Rikers and their bail was set for $1. They didn't know their bail was set for $1. So they spent 6 months of their lives on Rikers Island, not being able to be a productive member of society, not giving back, costing us all taxpayers millions of dollars, and for what? Just for $1 bail. I think if we reform bail, we allow people to come out, continue to work, continue to keep their housing, we continue to keep families intact. And then if people do things that violate the law, then they can go to jail and serve their sentence and serve society. Cash bail does not provide any benefits to our society.
When we talk about New York City, public transportation is basically the veins of New York. What steps would you take to improve the reliability of the district's public transportation? Mr. Epstein, let's start with you.
Yeah, there's two things. I think our community really relies on bus service. And if you've seen reports that have come out, buses have really slowed down over the last 20 years. We're seeing buses going 3 miles an hour and it used to go 7.5 miles an hour. So I think we need to figure out how we speed up bus service, stop the clumping of buses. Buses can now run 3 or 4 together, and then you won't see a bus for 20 minutes. The technology is available to do it. We just need to have the MTA fix the bus service to make it more reliable. Second thing around subway access is, especially subway lines in our district, there's an overcrowding problem. So we used to have additional lines. We used to have the V line on the 2nd Avenue stop. They removed that subway line. We need to improve subway access, especially with the L train closing in 6 months. We're going to see an increase in needs for other subway lines, and we need to ensure that happens. So I think long term, the subway will be better on the L train because we'll have better subway service, but we need to do that. The third thing, if we can, is accessibility for subways. Right now, we only have a quarter of all the subway stations in our city are accessible for people with disabilities. We need to prioritize ensuring accessibility so all New Yorkers can have access to our subways.
Mr. Cooper?
The 2nd Avenue subway, the F line, needs more cars because now there's been problems right now that there's one train every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, which is not a good idea, especially on the weekends where there's construction going on. We need to put like more cars on the F line, so accessible to people, because during the rush hour, evening rush hour, it's very important. But the most important thing on the weekends are a disaster. Okay, so we need to put more accessibility services on the weekends on the 2nd Avenue F line. The 1st Avenue bus line, which is brand spanking new, it's a great deal, but right now we need more of them because right now we have a massive congestion traffic problem on 1st Avenue because we have the hospital, Beth Israel, the ambulances, we have the schools there, and now, of course, the L train, which is getting ready to shut down. So we really need to add more bus services, right? Not just on 1st and 2nd Avenue, but on Avenue A, all the way up to 1st Avenue, from Avenue C, all the way up to 1st Avenue. We need to expand that services as well.
All right, and what is your position on congestion pricing, Mr. Cooper?
Well, you have to understand that when cars have to be moved, it's for a reason, because the sanitation have to clean the streets and everything, have to pick up garbage and things like that. But if someone has to move their car, okay, it's a little unfair that they have to pay extra. It really is. But there should be more signs and say, listen, you can leave your car here for a certain period of time or you're going to be fined. And then that should be on every single street, in the district, because like I said, information is everything, because if they don't know what's going on, then they'll be fined. That's it.
Mm-hmm. What's your position on congestion pricing?
So I think we need some form of congestion pricing. We have to reduce the congestion in the central part of Manhattan because we have so many problems with traffic. So what we did this year was to put a fee on Uber and Lyft. I think we need to revisit that. Second, we need to think about how we get people around the city. What is the best way to do it? If people are going to use their cars to drive into the Midtown District, there's got to be a price associated with it. We should look at what other places are doing around the country and tier it. We can also tier it economically. The people who have ability to pay more. If someone's a multimillionaire, they're like, oh, it's going to cost me $5 to get into a central area. I don't care. I don't think about $5. But someone who's low income and needs to go to the central area, $5 may mean a lot. So we could have a congestion prices system that's related to people's incomes, and we could have that system that's a two-tiered system. One, if you want to do it, you have a choice to go into the central area. Second of all, income-based. And third is, if you're leaving the congested area, I don't think we should be charging people for either moving their car or going to Brooklyn if it's going to reduce the congestion in the congested area.
All right. Now, in the Superstorm Sandy hit the district very hard. What measures should the next Assembly member take in order to improve resiliency? Mr. Epstein?
I think, one, we need to ensure the infrastructure is stronger. Public housing was really on the FDR Drive, on Avenue D, was hit the hardest. We need to ensure that we rehab those public housing units, and I've been working with the Public Housing Authority to ensure that money is being invested into public housing. Two, we need to figure out how we protect our shore. My suggestion, my thought is we should go like cities like Amsterdam do at the source. Instead of waiting to just wait for the water to come up the East River and then flood our neighborhood, we should look at sources. So in Amsterdam, they stop water at the source. If we can't do that, there's opportunities that we're talking about is how we ensure that at least from a seawall side, we can protect water from coming into our neighborhood. Second of all, we need to talk about resiliency and how we kind of protect people themselves. How do we get information out there? How do we ensure first responders work? What happened on Sandy is people, one, didn't have enough information, and there wasn't enough emergency situations. People with disabilities didn't know where to go. They couldn't get people out of buildings. We need to make sure our infrastructure is protected. And the third, if I can talk about this, is what we do as a community together. How do we protect each other? How do we engage each other? How do we know neighbors, floor captains, building captains together?
All right, Mr. Cooper.
I'm a member of the Community Emergency Response Team for the Office of Emergency Management. And our role is to educate and teach people about the go bag, escape plan, and what to do during a disaster and emergency. We have been going out to senior centers, street fairs, tenant associations, and all over the district, with our little team, and just having people information and telling them what to do in the back of an emergency. Now, as far as the situation in Holland, 60 Minutes had an episode where they had like the best drainage in the world. And there have been people from New York went over there to find out how did they work, how did it go. And so right now, the Office of Emergency Management right now is now assessing right now what to do as far as planning, especially on the East River all the way down to South Street Seaport. And so that's being done right now. And so now, as far as planning, all we need now is the funds.
We are just about out of time, and so now we're going to go to closing statements. You each have 2 minutes. We're going to start with you, Mr. Cooper. Well,
thank you very much, Manhattan Network, for inviting me here. Thank you for this debate. I have been an Republican activist now for going on 20 years now, and I've been all over the district as a district leader and going to community events and just talking to people and just listening to people's problems and listening to people's situations. I believe that I can do a better job in Albany because I am, like I said, I'm empathetic and I can listen and say, listen, what do you need? What do you have? What do you want? Let me see what I can do. I'm not making promises I can't keep, but I said, I see what I can do. People will respect that. And you have to work hard and to really have to show that you care. And that's what I'll bring to the table in Albany.
Thank you. Mr. Epstein.
Again, I want to thank you, Bryan, for being here with me and for the moderator for moderating this debate. I think it was a really healthy and interesting conversation. And I'm really honored to be able to represent this community since I was elected in April and thinking about the things we care about. We need to protect people, so the Reproductive Health Act. We need speed cameras. We need to talk about environmental issues, so understanding that climate change is real. So when we have resiliency interest going on, we respond. And really, my 5-point plan is a 5-point plan that I've heard throughout the district. How do we improve affordable housing? How do we have an MTA that works? How do we protect and defend public schools and not allow charter schools into our community and take away school space? Ensuring that we have voter access and voter IDs, and making sure that a city like New York advances criminal justice reform, because we have a system that's broken, that's detrimental to Black and Latino children and young people and people of color throughout our state. I'm committed to all these progressive values. I am a bold progressive. I ran that way. I will continue that way. I hope I've earned your support and people will re-elect me this November. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you for watching. Please remember to vote. The general election is on Tuesday, November 6th. For more information on voting, locating your poll site, and all the candidates, you can visit our website, racetorepresent.com, or the League of Women Voters website, lwvny.org. Thank you for watching Race to Represent on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Goodbye.